You're in a good place now. Relax, breathe, smile. You've entered into your element, the home of origin, the home of intelligence and entertainment, where relevant topics are discussed and where what you think counts, and where superior is the norm. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Berges, live on 660 The Answer.
You know what I'm craving? A little perspective. That's it. I'd like some fresh, clear, well-seasoned perspective. Can you suggest a good wine to go with that?
With, what, sir?
Perspective. Fresh out, I take it.
I am,
Very well. Since you're all out of perspective and no one else seems to have it in this bloody town, I'll make you a deal. You provide the food, I'll provide the perspective, which would go nicely with a bottle of Cheval Blanc 19...
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. And on tonight's Perspectives, we're exploring what it is to be human, the challenges that we go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between. You know, what does it mean to be human? What is our situation? I think that in its own right is kind of heavy. It's deep, as some people have coined, and we are humans inhabiting planet Earth, knowing we can't live on this Earth forever in this form, and wanting to what? Wanting to be happy. You know, we live on a huge rock hurling through space with the name of Mother Earth, and Mother Earth has absolutely everything we need. We've known this place is home ever since we exited the womb. And I don't know if you ever particularly exited your mom's womb right or left, but I just went straight out. You know, some of you might have been pulled out via C-section. Either way, it's an overwhelming experience that most of us don't honestly remember. However, if any listeners on tonight's show remembers the experience of coming out of their mother's womb, I would appreciate talking with you whenever possible. Bill, how is your night going?
It is going wonderful. About yourself, Ashley?
I'm doing well. I'm
Good.
looking forward to some calls about people remembering the birth, you know, about their actual birth. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Or remembering births like 2 or 3 lifetimes ago.
Ooh.
We
Existentialism right there. The 5th lifetime prior.
Right.
I remember that one, but I don't remember anything else in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up, Eric? How are you doing?
Hey, I'm hanging out. I'm just digging this human thing on the third rock from the sun, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah.
The third rock is pretty substantial. You know, so for the rest of us who don't seem to remember exiting mom's womb, you know, past regression therapy and hypnosis I think may work, but I haven't yet tried it. You know, if you don't remember, subconsciously you remember being pulled out of your dwelling, or for the men listening tonight, you were pulled out of your inherent man cave. You know, wasn't that like the first man cave? Isn't that where they got that?
That's hilarious.
Now that I think about it, it had all the amenities, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
It was cozy?
It was cozy, baby.
Was there a TV? I don't know. Was there? I guess there wasn't TV back then.
It was mental television, mental telepathy, spiritual TV, maybe, huh?
Yeah, but hey, you know, I mean, all the food you could eat, and you know, you just sleep all day. You know,
Some of us would like that now.
I know, huh?
Listening to Mama's heartbeat.
That's hilarious.
It's like, I like this sound.
First man cave. You know what? I'm going to use that as a pickup line when I go to the bar.
There you
next
go.
Time.
Hey, baby. This feels like the first man cave.
Can I see your man cave, baby?
There's a few things I'm just itching to say, but I'm just not going to say it.
This is a family program, Eric. This is a family program.
Family programming has brought it to a new level, I think, tonight. You know, it's true. It was the first man cave, I believe. And, you know, as a baby, right? As a baby, what do? We all pooped and we all peed in diapers, right? Diapers, if some of your parents were actually lucky, because some of you caused great messes with the diapers when they were being reapplied. I know people that actually tell me about how their kids can make a bigger mess when they're taking off the diaper, putting the diaper in the diaper pail, and they come back and it's a disaster.
Yep.
Absolute disaster.
Well, let me toss this out, Ashley. What about when you're taking off the diaper and your kid's not finished yet?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
The sprinkle.
The sprinkle. And I tell you, the girls are a lot worse than the boys. Forget what everybody else said.
You know, my sister-in-law said that because she has a boy and a girl.
Yeah.
And she said she'd rather change a boy than a girl any day.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's coming out with some fury out of the girls, man.
We need to have a competition on that. Bring your kids into the studios here and let's try it out. Let's see what we got here. You know, so yeah, you know, or you may not remember, right, what was up. But your mother always seems to be able to inform you. Think about that little tidbit of information that your mother will always talk about how long, giving birth was. I was in labor for 18 solid hours. Right? Or the extreme. Well, I had you in the back of a cab. It took 20 minutes. We scooped you up off the floorboard and we named you Scoop. And it was perfect. And that's just how it is. God bless our hearts. But you're going to hear that till you're 18. But it's funny how it's only the extremes that we hear. And it's funny how all the stuff in the middle doesn't seem to be newsworthy.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I've went through it 3 times as a husband, watching my kids come to this earth, and It is quite a journey. And yes, I got to tell you, it is a journey. And the kids, when they come out, wow, it's something to experience.
Here's a question, okay?
Yeah.
Now, were you in the delivery room?
Every time.
Yeah.
I had my doctor's skivvies on and the little hat and everything. I was there.
And you're doing the Bill Cosby thing.
Cut the umbilical cord, the whole 9 yards.
Shove them out. Way out.
But I tell you, Ashley said something about the memories of it all. And I'll never forget, each child that was born, I went to the restroom and I cried like a baby. I said, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
Right?
That's what I remember more than anything else.
I love that. You're like, oh God, praise God.
Yeah. Praise God. Oh my God. Oh God.
Bless me, God. Oh, bless me. Make sure I haven't made a mistake. And please allow me to be able to take care of this child.
Yes.
So it's like our post-exit. We begin to grow. We learn. We eat. We sleep. Your parents and your guardians take care of you in every way, right? And the best that they actually know how. It's interesting how our parents average 20 years older than their children that they actually have. And we wonder why our parents screwed us up. They're only 20 years younger, and we're like, Mom and Dad didn't know everything. They treated me like this, and that, and I have inherent problems from that. I need to see a psychologist or a life coach or even a family counselor like me. Think about it. That's what always happens.
Yeah, one of my grandmother's favorite sayings is that, children don't come with an instruction manual.
Yeah.
And, most people have, children starting in their late teens, early 20s, whatever. Of course, now more and more, it's not necessarily that way, but still, so you're barely, in your adulthood yourself when you start having children, and you expect somebody to just be an expert, especially with their first child.
Exactly. I'm a father, as you guys know. I'm 40 years old, and I remember when I was a kid looking at my parents, thinking they knew it all, thinking these people have got it under control. Now that I'm the age that they were, oh my gosh!
Well,
my gosh!
I experienced just the opposite, actually. Especially when I was a teenager, my parents were the dumbest rocks on the face of the earth. They didn't know anything. They didn't know what I was going through. I knew everything. And now that I'm 40 something years old, my parents have gotten a lot smarter.
Yeah,
exactly. God bless.
Yeah.
You have to be like a rock not to learn something. I agree though. And what about the parents that are like older? So there's a lot of people out there nowadays that are waiting till like the late 40s to have a child.
30s, 40s, yeah.
Energy. Energy. And I pray for them because I got a 6-year-old and I cannot keep up. I got to work out now to keep up with him for when he's 15 years old.
My dad says that. He's 60. And, he had an extended babysitting duty with his grandchildren recently.
A lot of that going on.
My younger people may not know a whole lot, but he says parenting is for young people because they have the energy.
They've got the energy and the patience.
Yeah.
And the cool factor.
Right.
The cool factor.
To a certain point. Then when you become a teenager, then they're just like stupid.
Or should I say the not so uncool factor? Yeah, we'll put it that way.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Y'all children, I've been thinking about it myself. And there's no what do they call it? That the clock is not ticking. I'm not thinking like that. But it's like you wonder, I think kids are fun, and we were all a kid at one point in time. And I think it's interesting how we exit the womb though. And it's got to be an overwhelming experience because most of us were born in a hospital with really bad lighting, like a lot of overhead lighting. Really, it's like, the club at 2:10 when they turn the lights on and you see what people really look like.
And then someone slaps you on your rear end.
I'm going to make you proud of me, Ashley. Here's a movie reference. This doesn't happen very often. Look who's talking.
Oh my gosh, it's hilarious.
Who was in that?
Remember Bruce Willis was was the voice of the baby?
Yeah.
That's that
was good.
Coming out of the womb and all these strange people,
they're looking
touching
at you.
funny.
It's time for a remake of that. That would be fun. That could be cool.
Let's do a remake.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We'll find some cool people.
These lights are ticking me off. Who's this guy with the mask on? He looks ridiculous. I want to go back. Take me back.
This is awful.
This is awful. The air's terrible. Look at this. It's terrible. I want to go back.
The original man cave. I'm going back. That's why all these men are like making their men caves now, because they're trying to go back into the womb.
Hey,
they're trying to go back in. They don't want to be out. They want to be back in. I mean,
Tell you a little secret. We're all big babies.
Oh, yeah.
big baby.
We're all big babies.
We are.
Being baby's kind of fun sometimes, so, you're allowed to get away with stuff. And otherwise, though, when you're not, they go, why are you being such a baby? I don't like that. Or brand spanking new. That's funny, too. Brand spanking new. Brand spanking new. So you just spanked a kid when they're brand new. Who does that? Who spanks a kid on the way out? Like, if we haven't scared you enough, we're going to pull you out. We're going to cut this cord. We're going to spank the crap out of you. You're like, whoa.
Probably my mother would fall in that category. She, in fact, to this day, I need to spank you for general principles.
I was wondering.
She would. She was spanking just for general principles, Just because I did something that day, she knew it. She just didn't know what. But hey,
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
I mean, this day and age, she'd get arrested for it. But back then, they handed her a medal for it.
Did she grab a switch off the tree?
My grandpa used to do that.
Ooh.
Get a switch, son.
And I had to go get the switch.
Yeah,
and if it wasn't big enough, then he would get one, and I would,
What is a switch? Is that a branch?
Yeah, like a twig.
Why do they call it? Why do they just call it a branch or a twig? Why do they call it a switch?
Branch sounds so brutal.
I know.
The switch sounds a little bit less.
Well, give me the belt.
Well, I mean, yeah, and a branch is more like baseball, that like it's like a club, and you don't want to do that.
Go get the branch so I can beat you.
Yeah. Well,
Get the switch so I can teach you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I had a friend that used to have dreams about a little skinny blue belt, and it was like nightmares because his mom would use this little skinny plastic blue belt and spank him. And so ever since then, he had nightmares about this belt.
Here's my favorite one from when I was a kid. This is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You're just saying that, Daddy.
My dad used to use a black cowboy belt, by the way.
But we'll talk about more about that later, because I think that's consciously done something to you. So we're going to talk about
Probably has. It probably has.
When we return, we're continuing our exploration into what it is to be human, the challenges we go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives with Ashley Burgess. The water's warm and there's a swim-up bar. Glass of perspective, anyone? Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. And on tonight's show, we've been exploring what it is to be human, the challenges we all go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between. Right before we went to break, we were discussing our breakout of the womb scenario and what takes place afterwards. Our new world, Mother Earth, and how our parents are in their early 20s on average, only 20 years older than us, having us, and we wonder why the mistakes were made, why they weren't perfect. And earlier before break, we were talking what it is to be human. And I think to be human is everything and anything. We're part of everything. And I think when we're extremely young, we go through these processes and we start to begin to understand emotions and theories and philosophies. And like the older we get, we question love and what that fully means. And the ingrained process of being on Earth, too, is very interesting, because it does seem to take us away from where we were prior. It seems like we kind of get ingrained into this world and this is all there is. And so you have to really work on a spiritual level to keep that going as well. So I think the best bet for us to discuss right now is to talk about the challenges that we experience as a human. I mean, because I think that we have a lot of challenges. I think that, there's a degree of things that we deal with. And I think that the health issue is the most important, because we always hear the fact, that was such a super healthy baby, or she was such a sickly child. And I think that the health is such a big matter on living on this earth. What do you think, Bill?
Well, absolutely. Because if you're going to bring children into the world in the first place, then you've got an emotional investment in that child, and so you want that child to be healthy, and and I've seen people obsess over the health of their children, but I mean, why bother having children in the first place if you don't want them to be healthy?
That's true.
No, I look at it, you talk about health, and I look at it in 3 dimensions: mind, body, and spirit. We talk about physical health, but, you got to look at it in its totality. And Ashley, when my kids, one of the things that I try to, are you eating well? Are you feeling well? And how's your spiritual state? And I think that's when you look at it in that totality, it makes a difference, because you're dealing with someone that is an evolving being. And It's not just what you see, it's dimensions that you don't see. And I think you have to nurture those dimensions as well. Ashley, I mean, is that something that, am I making any sense with that?
Yes, you are. I'm tuned in. Tuned in Tokyo. Yes, you're making total sense. No, I agree with you. It's like there's 3 levels of, understanding of education. And I think sometimes, when parents are young, it's hard for them to kind of explain that.
Yeah.
But I think as children, before we even able to talk, we can understand at least emotion from our family, understand at least like, how dad is feeling or how mom is and that kind of sort of thing. I think that's kind of interesting. And so you kind of absorb from there.
And kids learn to navigate that. I mean, my kids, they know when daddy's in a good mood. They know when to ask for money. They know when not to ask for money. And you bring up emotion, Ashley, and that's, for me as a human on this journey, that's the toughest thing for me, emotions. And, I wrote a poem a while back, where do you go when these emotions overflow? And emotion, there's something about that. Is it the fact that we came from a different realm and we didn't have physical bodies there, and so we couldn't feel emotion? And this journey is about understanding emotions. I mean, is that part of it? Because emotions are difficult for me.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think emotions are hard. I mean, emotions actually, a few years back, I've been working through them myself. And I think honestly, for most people on planet Earth, emotions are difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, dealing with emotions.
Yeah.
I think we can feel emotions. And I think a lot of times we feel, oh, I'm mad or I'm sad or I'm angry, even though the only definition we truly have is I'm love. But then when we start realizing that, like the whole envelope opens and it's like, oh my God, we won the Academy Award, because you start realizing love is the only thing I can actually be. Love is the only thing I can actually feel. But in order to get to that spot, it's hard.
You got to go through a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
man. You got to go through a lot of heartbreak. You got to go through a lot of stops and starts. But you're right, Ashley. I love that, because with my kids, again, I keep referencing my kids, and it lets you guys know how important they are in my life. My kids help me understand me better, because it's like looking in the mirror. They react similar to the way that I react. And so instead of trying to make it all complex, I start from a place of love. And that's powerful. That's a powerful thing to do, I think.
I think so too. I think that's really important. And I think that when we try to figure out our emotions, that's a challenge that we have in our whole life, is to understand how do we feel? Why do we feel this? Or why is it kind of coming to us that way? Because I think sometimes like feelings can come randomly, and I think we don't even know why.
Well, and I think that's the crux of the issue, isn't it? We just don't understand emotions. I mean, you feel them, but not without necessarily understanding them. And I think it takes an entire lifetime, really to master that.
I think so.
And I think emotions are amazing. I think the other conflict, the whole health issue as well, is like, you're right, you have like your whole physical health, but what about your mental, emotional health? And I think that those challenges are amazing too, but I think there's a lot of stuff that happens in between, and we're going to talk about that later on this evening, because I think a lot of times, like, for example, there's extremes, like the child is always healthy, this kid never gets sick, or the extreme, this kid is a medical marvel. And I think that some of us fall in between. I was the medical marvel. Okay. I don't know about y'all. I was the medical marvel. And so everybody talks about that. And you think about those kind of things where, they bring up this stuff, but what happened to the stuff in between? And we're going to talk about that, because a lot of times everything we do in our life is about what's newsworthy. What would Fox cover if they were going to cover my life? Well, would it be that it took 35 hours to have my child in labor? Or would it be that it only took 6? I mean, and I think it was interesting. I was talking earlier to a friend of mine, and they were saying, what about the whole idea of how far you had to walk uphill to go to school?
Yeah.
Like the old adage of like their grandfather would be like, I had to walk 4 miles uphill in the snow both ways to get to school. And they're like, well, what if it was like a quarter block down the road? I mean, nobody talks about that. Nobody says it was so easy to get to school. It was great.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I had to walk all the way across the living room to change the channel.
Oh my gosh. How did you do it?
Uphill.
Human remote control.
Both ways.
How are you doing it? Are you okay? Are you feeling good?
I mean, and I had to actually turn the dial manually.
Oh my God.
And sometimes my dad would make me stand there and be the TV antenna. No, I'm kidding. But
the horror, the pain, the suffering.
Ashley, to your point, talk about the high points. I think that sensationalism is part of that emotion. There's something about the sensationalizing of things, of life that attract us. But at the end of the day, it's the mundane that's healthier for us. Just think about food. The food that's the spiciest, or the food that's ultra prepared. Is that any better than just grandmama's homemade greens? Which seems simple.
I prefer actually the homemade greens.
Yeah.
I prefer the easy stuff because it doesn't make you sick. I mean, I get sick on butter and oils and all that kind of stuff, and I've known that my whole life. I used to have this addiction to movie butter popcorn. And you go to the theater and you get the popcorn. My dad would always be like, popcorn butter. And it's just that oil. It wasn't real butter either. And you'd have it and you'd eat that. And I remember at the end of each film, I would go in the bathroom and get sick. every single time. And so I cannot do butter. So when I go to those fancy restaurants where it's like 5 courses of like, oh, this butter, and we're going to put truffle oil on that. And then on top of the truffle oil is Parmesan cheese. And on top of the Parmesan cheese is a nice marsala sauce. And on top of that marsala sauce, you're like, oh my God. And you leave there and you're thinking, I would have been so much better having a chicken breast and some rice.
Yeah, just grilled chicken and rice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Steamed
please,
rice.
God, give me something
Steamed
normal.
vegetables.
With
You
a
know?
little chicken juice over the top.
Yeah.
Ooh, what is that? Azure? What is that?
Chicken juice.
Whatever it is, chicken cheese.
It's chicken juice. Poor chickens out there. Anyway, so I think we go through these issues and these challenges, and I think that's what's so interesting about us, the human experience. And I mean, let's look at even past. Even past the child. Think about the parents and what they're going through, the challenges that they're experiencing. Am I raising my child right? Am I doing the right thing? Was I old enough to have a kid? Am I too old? Am I too young? I mean, am I actually teaching them the right thing? Are they learning the right thing?
You know, something my grandmother used to tell me is that if you wait until you're ready to have children, then you'll never have children.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think you just might as well just do it if you feel like it.
You just jump in it.
Yeah.
I still don't think I'm ready, but I got to do what I got to do. And,
Yeah.
you can make it complex, but it goes back to what Ashley said. Start from a place of love. Keep it simple. Love your kids, appreciate your kids, and they'll return that.
That's true. And a lot of times we have to figure out how to go from that state of love, because I think that parents in general, a lot of our parents went through families and homes that they tried their best. I mean, but there's always issues. So the idea of love is hard sometimes. You have the whole concept of guilt.
Yeah.
I think guilt is instructed in a lot of religions as well, besides the fact that mother is good at providing guilt, grandmother is good at providing guilt, great-grandmother is good at providing guilt. And so if you don't follow that suit of, I'm guilty because I'm learning it from mom, but I'm also learning it from the church, so I got to be guilty, okay? So you feel bad about everything you have, and you feel bad about everything you don't have, and you feel bad about those people not having it either. So you're thinking, okay, well, what am I going to do next?
Well, I think pop culture plays a part in that too, Ashley. I mean, isn't the ideal is that you can have it all, and you can have career and family, and you're a great parent, and you can provide your kids with all this stuff. And if you don't live up to that ideal, then you feel inferior. But who can live up to that ideal? I think even the people who are quote unquote living the ideal don't really live up to the ideal behind the scenes.
I agree with that. And you know what, Bill? That opened up a can of worms that we are going to address here in the next segment, because you just opened up something that's very interesting, the way we have to see the world and the way we feel like we can have everything or not have everything. It all depends on our thought process.
Me and my big mouth.
So when we return, we're continuing our exploration into what is to be human, the challenges we go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in, you know what? We'll be back in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess on 660 The Answer.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On tonight's Perspectives, we've been exploring what it means to be human, the challenges we go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between. Right before break, we were discussing challenges, the challenges we go through, the challenges family goes through, parentals go through, raising children as well as the children. I think one of the most interesting challenges that we go through, past the whole concept of health, which is basically trumps everything, is the concept of rags to riches. Or riches to rags. So think about it. Like, you're born into this family. You're born into whatever the family has going on. So if the family lives in a paper box, you live in a paper box. If the family lives in a mansion, you live in a mansion. So take, for example, the box. You're just trying to grow and get out of poverty. You're just trying to go and get out of where you are to actually have a life, and you're working so hard. So that's a challenge. Now, are you able to match the challenge? And nobody asked to, I think maybe people asked to be born. I don't know. That's kind of a transcendental concept that we'd have to go through about the whole pre-existing, I asked to be born into this family. I want to be born because I want to experience these experiences in life, which is a possibility. However, consciously, I don't know if that's true. Consciously, I don't know if we always know that, because after we're being pulled out of the womb and spanked and scared to death, you probably forget a lot of that stuff coming in. So what do you think about the whole concept of rags to riches? Eric, do you want to take this one on about how it's hard. Well, and the opposite is also to play too, Bill. I mean, think about the concept of if your family has a lot of money and to be successful, to show the same level of success, to ride to the occasion, to jump to the occasion where they're thinking, well, I'm real proud of my kid, instead of, man, this kid's an idiot. I mean, I can't believe this. We wasted all this time.
Yeah, Ashley, I'm gonna throw this at you, and thanks for that. I love that because I was raggedy, and hopefully I'll be rich one day, but I'm still kind of raggedy. But is it a natural? Let me put it to you this way: is it a natural function of being a human being to elevate? Okay, and stay with me here because we all came from some other realm. Okay, well, maybe not obviously, but there's people that say we came from some other realm and we're having human experiences. So is it not a function of us wanting to ascend rags to riches, rich, poor to rich, or whatever you want to call it, to get to a higher level spiritually? But it manifests itself physically in things, in titles and jobs and money and all of that. So is it not a natural human thing to evolve, to elevate, to get higher, to grow, to ascend? And so if you look at it that way, rags to riches, yeah, I want to get better. I want to do better. Is that not a natural human thing?
Well, I think it's actually on an individual basis myself. Yeah. I think some people do want to elevate themselves. Some people don't. I know people who, that they're in a lower status in life and they're just fine with it.
But at some point, maybe they did want to, and maybe it was stamped out by society, by experiences, by abuse.
I think by their own personality sometimes. Yeah. I know people who just don't have that drive.
Well, and I guess it goes back to the spectrum. We always talk about spectrum. There's a spectrum of things, and maybe that's the one of the ends of the spectrum. I don't know, Ashley. Is that kind of hovering around where you want to get to? Or
I definitely think so, because I think a lot of times we have to live up to some sort of something. Some people create these things, whether we go to school, whether we go to college, whether we get certain education, whether we go to trade school, whether we get a doctorate, whatever it is that we go through. And I think it's it's to impress the people that raised us. I think also, though, it's hard, too, because, again, a lot of times we don't see the in-between. So we see those extreme cases where you look on the news or you have a friend that tells you, oh, so-and-so, they basically couldn't even afford food, and now their child is, playing in the NBA, or, so-and-so just found the cure for cancer, but you never really hear the middle stuff. And I think we all go through, I can kind of say that everybody at this table, we don't know how our story is going to end. Yeah. We don't know how this lifetime is going to end. We could be one of those stories. I think that everybody basically, to a degree, except for the people that I agree with you about the ones that don't try. Maybe they were beaten down by life, but all of it is our choices. We do choose everything. And sometimes I forget that. Like sometimes I see things that people are going through and I just want to save them, but then I realize me saving them is not the right thing. So for example, let's take an easy breezy thing that we can all talk about on a Saturday night. Because I know a lot of people are listening in their car, they're heading to dates, they're doing whatever. Think about it when you have a friend that's breaks up with a boyfriend or girlfriend. And to you and to the outside world, they seem like such a great person. You don't know why they left them, because that person had everything going for them. And it kind of seems like your friend that broke up maybe didn't make the right decision. And you want to sit there and say, hey, by the way, think about it, talk about it. But you realize if you kind of put that in there, that could change the course of history.
Yeah.
Because even if they do get back together and get married, what if the marriage is awful? Okay, and then they look at you, Eric, they look at you, Bill, and they go, thanks a lot for ruining my life, okay? Or if you don't say anything at all, what happens when they come back to you? And I don't know what to do sometimes. And so I realize a lot of times that other people's lives are other people's lives.
Yeah.
And when we intersect, when the two lines intersect, and we can actually work together on something, I have the right to my opinion. And if they ask me for it, they have the right to hear my opinion and vice versa. But I think sometimes in life we have to take the gloves off, the kid gloves off, and just say, hey, it's their life. And even with children, even with parents and children, I think that exists.
You bring up a couple of points, Ashley, and I'm going to use an example that I used to ask this question as a kid. When I used to watch Wild Kingdom, you guys remember the show Wild Kingdom, Mutual Omaha and all of that. And we would see a deer or an antelope getting eaten, or we would see a tiger's cubs, a lion's cubs getting attacked by hyenas. And I would always say, why doesn't the host or the people that's filming it get in and stop it from happening? And they would always say, it's not our responsibility to disrupt the pattern of the wild.
Let nature take its course.
Let nature take its course. And there's something powerful in that. And Also, as a parent, there's so many times that I want to interject and prevent my kids from failing or prevent my kids from experiencing pain, but I realize I'm doing them a disservice if I do that, and so it becomes a teaching lesson. But I want to ask one question, Ashley, because we started this talking about rags to riches and all of that. One thing that's always been in my mind, a question always in my mind: why do they call it the human race? Why do they call it a race?
That's interesting.
Why do they call it a race? Why is that?
Well, I think to emphasize that regardless of our background, of our heritage, of our cultural, experiences, there are certain universal things. I mean, I can go through joy and happiness and sadness and anger, just like somebody from the Amazon rainforest, who lives a Stone Age existence, for example. And so regardless of our differences, which unfortunately that there are cultural differences that can be be an impediment sometimes. At the same time, there are such universal experiences. That we really are all the same. Sure. Under the skin.
But I meant it more in regards of a race, as in a race.
Let me
like
take this.
Going to somewhere.
I think that the human experience should be, I think that the human race should be the human journey. Okay, so
okay.
I get what you're saying about race, because it has two meanings. One means race, like we're not going to talk about white, black, Asian, Indian, and I agree with that. So it's a combination of people, and that's cool. So we're all under one umbrella: the race, the human race, or the animal race, the animal kingdom.
Yeah, but I meant it more in the sort of movement.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
but it's like this race, and I think a lot of times, like you said, like I know what you're thinking is that a lot of times people lose sight of the journey because they're too busy running a race. I had a dream one time where I was running this race, right? And there was millions of people there. It was like way more than the New York Marathon. And I'm in there, and I'm running, got my number on, and I'm running. And as I'm cruising down, all of a sudden, something just told me just to stop. And I stopped, and I tried to turn around, and there's so many people going at me. I'm trying to turn around, so I turn around, and I'm running up against around people and through groups of people, and people are looking at me like I'm an idiot. Like, you're insane. And they're looking at me like, the race is that way. You're running the wrong way.
Yeah.
You're running the wrong way. And I was trying to, I fall down because somebody trips me and all this stuff's going on. Eventually, when I finally got out of the pack, there was only maybe one or two people in front of me. And all of a sudden I saw a couple other people turn around and go, maybe she's going the right way. And so they started following me, and the road went from brick to asphalt to sand to mud. And you go all the way to the mud, and it gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And toward the end, it was so thin, the path, that we actually had to stop, and we would we'd pick them up and literally put them over our shoulders so that they could walk in front of us.
Sure.
And so we acted like a human caterpillar, basically. And you know what? Guess what? That was the road to take.
Mm-hmm. Actually,
that was the road to take.
Maybe another way to put it is, sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees.
That's true.
And so we get so caught up in the the mundane details of our everyday existence, basically what's in front of our face, that no pun intended, we forget to step back and take the perspective of the larger journey.
I agree with that, and I think that's interesting, because I think the race is a comical concept. Let's talk more about this when we come back from break, because I think the race is just to get us off target from what we're really supposed to be doing. So when we return, we're continuing our exploration into what it means to be human, the challenges we go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, we'll be back in 2 shakes.
I could lift you up. I could show you what you want to see and take you where you want to be.
Get in here. Give us your perspective. We're listening. And you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On tonight's Perspectives, we've been exploring what it means to be human, what it is, the challenges that we actually go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between. So earlier, right before break, we were discussing the challenges, the whole concept of rags to riches, the concept of trying to live up to standards. I think now is the time to talk about triumphs, because I think our triumphs are very interesting in the human condition. And right before break, we were talking about the human race and how a lot of times we see it as a race instead of a journey. And I think that's what gets into this whole concept of what we're talking about, is that we see these extreme highs and these extreme lows. For example, let's say we were actually running a real race, and let's say you were always trying out, you were always doing these marathons and everything else like that, but you don't talk about any of the 102 marathons you ran except for the three that you were in the top 10. And those are the ones you talk about. And all the other ones just kind of get pushed under the rug.
Yeah, Ashley, I'm going to jump onto this one here, and I'll give you an example. As you guys know, and you've heard on the show before, I was an athlete a long time ago, excuse me, but I was pretty fast. Okay, I could run a 4.40 in the 40-yard dash, which was a really, really good time back then, and it's still a good time now. So I could sprint through life really quickly. And in the off season, I would run trails. I would run hiking trails, and I would run through that trail as fast as I could, up hills, down hills, around curves, by trees, and the whole 9 yards, just to see how fast I could do it. Now that I'm older and my Achilles heels and my ankles don't work very well, I'm forced to walk the trails. And what I've noticed is that it's much more rewarding, because I'm going at a different pace. I'm going at a slower pace. I'm seeing the little ants. I'm seeing the butterflies. I'm seeing the differences in the trees and the breeze and all of that stuff. And it's a more pleasurable journey versus sprinting through it. And that's an interesting dynamic to me. So I like walking now. I ran at a point, but I enjoy walking now.
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to stop and smell the roses.
Smell the roses,
because,
yeah.
Kind of put it in a different context. Those of you who don't live in Dallas, the Dallas area, we're undergoing, a lot of urban renewal right now. And I think one of the main concepts around it is, how do we reconnect people back to the city? Because a long time ago, somebody decided it was a good idea to build a whole bunch of freeways,
expressways, mix masters,
that where every freeway meets in the middle, and then you go back out again. So you bypass basically
downtown.
And I do the same thing. Whenever I drive into the city, I've got someplace to go and get out of my way. Ever since I started taking the train, then I'm noticing more of the city. Good and bad, and also interacting with people, good and bad. In fact, just today coming up to the studio, some guy sat next to me. I don't think he's bathed in a week. But then I changed trains and had a really nice conversation with like the 75-year-old gentleman, and we just kind of shared life experiences. But
that's part of the journey.
But you can't do that, driving in the big concrete jungle. So
So human journey versus the human race. Let's coin it right here.
Yeah, the human journey. I like it.
I like that. I think experiences are interesting.
Can we trademark it on Perspectives
right now?
Burgess?
Right now.
Yes, we did.
You heard it first.
It's already been done. It's already been registered.
Tonight on Ashley Burgess.
Don't try to do it. Yeah, I think experiences are highly important, and I think that experience is what makes us human, right? And it's what makes us understand and actually draw certain things out of this experience, because that's what it's all about. It's like you can't have 5 experiences and have the human experience. You have to be able to look and understand what other people are going through. You have to understand the situation. I mean, if you can feel other people's feelings, if you can understand, and I think a lot of our triumphs come from the, some people would say these aren't really triumphs, but I think that's exactly what we're talking about, is the understanding of the emotional component, the understanding of life, and being able to see things in a different way. For example, experiencing time with your family. A lot of times we wait until somebody's dying, and everybody comes together in a death, and they say, well, great-grandmother passed away. And so everybody's at the funeral, and the funeral is this big deal, and all the family members are there and everything. And it's sad because the family members could have been there 2 years ago. The family members could have been there back when she was alive. But it seems like the only way we get all together is when somebody stops dead in their tracks, and everybody's like, oh, gosh, what are we going to do now?
Through the emotional lens of sadness and loss. So flip it, and let's do it through the emotional lens of joy and love.
Exactly.
Well, it recalls a time when I was dating someone a few years ago.
One of those supermodels?
One of the supermodels.
Did she have a sister?
She didn't. She was came from a family of boys. So I had to be careful of all the brothers. But anyway, a relative of her passed away. She wanted me to come to the funeral. And she says, oh, and while you're there, you can meet my family. And I kind of balked at that. So I says, sweetheart, I'm not sure a funeral is the best place to, meet family for the first
swinging,
time.
Swinging single Bill balking the idea of going to a family event, especially a funeral, to meet the family.
Well, I don't mind going to the family event. It's just, I think what Eric was saying.
I get it.
The context wasn't correct, so we kind of had a little tiff about that. But
I just keep, when you talk about that, I keep thinking about Seinfeld's episode of when George goes to the funeral and then he, dips the chip and then he dips it twice and then he gets in a fight with the girlfriend's brother over dipping the chip and the germs. And it just came to mind.
Classic.
Okay, classic funeral thing. But you know what I'm saying? Like the triumphs of weddings and love and happiness and the triumphs of, like, let's say going to school and getting educated and getting that degree and getting to the next level. I think that's a big deal. Or getting that first job opportunity.
Yeah.
These are the triumphs we remember. These are the things. On the flip flop, the challenge is getting turned down 100 times, or not getting this, or not getting into the school you wanted to get into, or having to go to junior college first before going into school because your grades weren't good enough.
Failure of a relationship.
Or a failure of a relationship.
Whether it's a romantic or a friendship or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the triumphs are interesting because it's interesting the way that we define triumph. And, let me ask you that, Eric. How do you define a triumph?
Ooh, triumph. Me being the athlete, winning, losing, triumph. A triumph for me is extending myself. I've spent the whole day with my daughter today. She's been shadowing me today. It's daughter follow daddy day. And one of the things that we have in the family values, and we've got them written out and they're all over the house. And one of the family values is extend yourself. And so for me, a triumph is really extending yourself. Am I better today? Have I met a new person today? Have I pushed through negative emotions today? And so that's a triumph, for me on the small scale. Is that for most people, Ashley? Is that you? How do you define it?
I think sometimes you can get lost in life, like the race. You kind of see triumphs as these huge things, like, okay, you got this, and then you kind of forget everything in between. So I remember there was a time I published my first book, and I was like, woo! And for the few months in between, I couldn't tell you exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there were lots of triumphs, but at the level of what I thought a triumph was, is changed.
Yeah.
My level of triumph has completely changed.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's from growing up, and also I think that's from wisdom, is that you realize that you're just going to miss your whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, because I started thinking about it, like, so if you get what you want, let's just say, you get what you want, like you basically, you're like, Ashley Burgess, but you're like Oprah too, right? So you get up there and you get the show and you get everything you want. So then what happens when that's not good enough?
Yeah.
When you need something else. And then what happens when that's not good enough and you need something else? So when do you finally sit back and say, wow, what a great life?
I used to be that person. I still am today, but very driven and triumph or victory or winning for me was, that because I didn't come from a lot, and it was, getting the right job, getting the right address, getting, the right car, wearing the Armani suits and what have you. And I got a lot of that stuff, but it didn't do anything.
It didn't fulfill you.
It didn't fulfill me.
Right.
And I said to myself, this is not sustainable. And that's a big word that I've used, ever since I came to that realization. What's sustainable? That wasn't sustainable for me. It's like, and I hate to use the example, it's like someone who's maybe addicted to something.
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, rest his soul. I mean, he had everything. The guy's one of the most brilliant actors ever.
He had everything, quote unquote, that society defines.
Society,
yeah.
but he didn't have that inner triumph, he didn't beat that inner demon, whatever that was.
Ashley, let me offer this to you. My definition of a triumph is achieving a life goal, whatever it happens to be. And it could be a major goal, like, okay, I got my dream job, or, had my first child, or, now I have Mercedes, whatever. Or it could be just something mundane, like, okay, I successfully punched the snooze button only twice.
Yeah.
This morning.
Or
I real quickly, Eric, I successfully got up at 8 this morning to go jogging before I came to the studio.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be just something like that. But whenever I've achieved a goal of mine, I consider that a triumph.
Well, what do you do? Do you quit? We'll go back into this in the next segment. So I want to know what you do, to say, hey, you had a triumph. I think that a lot of times we let things go. And you might say it's a triumph, but what kind of pat on the back, what kind of stuff do you say? How do you remember it? It's almost like how we take pictures nowadays. We take pictures, and instead of having them developed at Eckerd's or Walgreens, however, they go into our computer and you end up having thousands of pictures there that you've never developed, things that you never see again. And sadly enough, at that time, it was so important to take that picture and those pictures. But what do you do back? It's like the triumphs you totally forget. So stay tuned, because when we come back, we're going to be exploring more about what it is to be human, the challenges, the triumphs, the experience, and we're going to start getting into the awesome what's in between. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
You're in a good place now. Relax, breathe, smile. You've entered into your element, the home of origin, the home of intelligence and entertainment, where relevant topics are discussed and where what you think counts, and where superior is the norm. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess, live on 660 The Answer.
The galaxy is here!
What do you mean here? Galaxies, hundreds of millions of stars and planets. How's it here?
You humans, when are you gonna learn that size doesn't matter? Just because something's important doesn't mean it's not very, very small.
How small?
Tiny, like the size of a marble or a jewel. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta be walked before my flight.
All right, get out of here.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. And if you're just tuning in tonight on Perspectives, we're exploring what it means to be human. You know, the challenges that we go through, the triumphs that we experience, and everything honestly in between. And, you know, before we went to break, we were talking more about the concept of our triumphs, about, you know, what is special, about what comes out of our life, about the things that we experience, about the love, about the awesomeness that we consider life. And I think that that's pretty cool, but I think that the thing we need to really look at is the in-between.
Yep.
And, you know, I think that one of the things we could say, you know, Eric and Bill, I know you're not married yet. You know, I've been pushing that. But anyway, Eric, you're married and you
just want to be a
understand.
bridesmaid.
No, I just want to, you know, officiate the wedding since I am a pastor and a
gotcha.
reverend. I just wanted to be the part of the wedding. However, I haven't gotten to do a wedding yet, so I've been really wanting to. So yes, come on, Bill, think about it. So let's talk about those triumphs. And I think that the first triumph that I can think about would be a marriage. And I think that a marriage is a big triumph for people. Like, you get married, you meet the right person, you fall in love, you get married, and we're talking about a good marriage here. So I know there's a lot of people listening tonight said that it was one of the worst things that ever happened to them in their life. But let's think about it in a positive light. So let's say it's the triumph. Even if I guess it's a bad marriage, you still have the triumph of the beginning of the marriage. So let's talk about the in-between though. So, because from one side you get married. And on the flip side, which is another extreme, which would be a challenge, would be that they either die, you die, they die, you both die, or you get divorced. And so what happens in the in-between part is a lot. That's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, it's, you know, I've got a perspective. I was married before. You know, life is life. It didn't go the way either of us had planned. But for me, the triumph was not just getting married a second time. The triumph is surviving the marriage, and not necessarily surviving, but flourishing in the marriage. You know, I tell you, and this is maybe a tearjerker moment, but when I asked Carla to marry me, you know, I'd been beyond all the young enthusiasm about being in love and all of that, you know, birds and bees and all of that stuff in the beginning. And for her, I simply said, you know, let's create memories together. She was a little bit older. I was a little bit older. We were both mature, set in our careers. And for me, it was about let's enjoy the journey together. I did not want to go through life alone and not having someone to talk to about memories and experiences.
Well, and also too, you had the experience of the marriage going bad, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you learned things and you wanted to maybe not repeat the mistakes.
Exactly. But I also wanted to create that journey that Ashley's talking about. And I realized that I had the power to create that journey. Now, it hasn't been all roses, but you know what? I've opened myself up to the ups and the downs. And for me, there's nothing cooler than having someone know your every fault and still love you anyway.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Do you close the door in the bathroom?
that's the point where I draw the line. That's my special me time.
Do you leave this toilet seat up? You know, all that good stuff.
The worst thing is the closing of the door. I mean, I had the other day a friend of mine was at the gym, and he said he walked in, he was in the gym bathroom, and there was a guy going to the bathroom with the door open. I'm like, y'all aren't married. God bless. But yeah, think about like the Hollywood weddings. Think about the Hollywood weddings. Think about these weddings that people in real life, your friends have, even other people, what have you. They put all this money and all this stock into this wedding.
It's not about that.
Well, and that's one of their triumphs, but sometimes that's all they see is they don't see any of the in-between, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you why I think that people put so much emphasis on...
Why?
Tell
me. Educate me. Billy, educate me.
Because, I mean, it's... The institution of marriage has been institutionalized ever since human beings have been on Earth, okay? It's a major rite of passage for adulthood. You know, boy meets girl... and they decide that they want to, you know, in most cases anyway, you know, they want to make a family. And the reason it's institutionalized is because if your society isn't having children, then your society is going to die. Okay.
Yeah.
So human beings from earliest times institutionalize marriage. Okay. And, you know, of course it's intended to, you know, to be for life because you want a family and when you get to be old, you need to have people take care of you. Right.
But so, is it the ceremony or is it marriage? Because marriage is not the ceremony, you know.
Well,
makes sense?
Well, it can be the ceremony. You know, that's the thing is that a lot of times,
unfortunately,
it's
sometimes.
not.
Well, the ceremony, the ceremony is what's there to institutionalize it.
The marriage,
it's the ring on the finger,
right?
You're putting the ring on the finger, and so it set off onto this whole path of we're going to have kids, we're going to do this, we're going to indoctrinate you, you're going to have 2.5 kids, and I think that marriage has shifted a little bit lately. I think that to a degree, Bill, most people feel the same way. They think about kids are going to come right after the marriage thing, so you better have a party before it. I think, though, that sometimes we lose sight of it, though. We only see the big things. Like, I talk to some friends that are going through a divorce, and they'll be like, the wedding was so awesome. It was so great. I remember when we had our first kid. That was great, too. And this divorce is just killing me. And it's like, well, what is in between? And they can't remember anything in between. They can't think of it. And I think that's the most important stuff is the stuff in between.
I do think that you have a major point there. You know, I can remember the marriage of Prince William and Kate Middleton.
Right. Yeah.
There were women, okay, who like rented hotel ballrooms. And like had a dress up party.
Oh, come on.
And of course they broadcast it live, right? So they had to get up at like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, you know, to go do this. I mean, and there's so much emphasis put on that ceremony that you don't give any thought to what comes at, you know, the day after.
You got to think about that. That's the richness.
And you know, like I was saying, I mean, you know, the reason they have the ceremony is it's, you know, in order to institutionalize it,
to make it legal,
to make it legal, but to formalize it, and it's supposed to be, you know, the beginning of a lifelong, you know,
bond.
Union. Supposed to be, you know, and
but a lot of times, you're right. Nowadays, a lot of people, it's all about the party. It's all about this party. And there's recently a bunch of film stars that have gotten in. I'm not going to name any names or point fingers, but they got these huge, insane marriages, these insane weddings, these ceremonies. They spend millions of dollars on it, and then within like a year, you're already hearing about infidelity issues, problems.
I definitely think that a lot of people these days go into marriage for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, no, you know, one of the good examples, we're talking about famous folks, you know, is Denzel Washington and his wife. And, you know, he said early on, before his star even hit the level that it hit, that we're not going to do this LA Hollywood thing because I don't want it to disrupt with the basic fundamental values in how I see my life. Yeah. And their marriage has remained strong. I mean, he's one of the most handsome people in the world and he's got everything coming at him. And don't tell me if he didn't have a strong foundation and a really good understanding, it's the journey and not necessarily the lights, camera, action, they would not have made it. And so, you know, for me, it's having someone to call when you're on the road. It's not being afraid to cry in front of someone who loves you. It's an opportunity to be vulnerable at some point in your life and allowing someone inside.
It's someone who knows you better than you know yourself.
Yeah.
And
still love you.
And still love you for, you know, warts and all. Yeah. And is willing to hold up that mirror even when you don't necessarily like what you see.
Yeah, I agree.
I think sometimes we lose sight about, you know, the cool things, the things that are really neat. Like the other night, I was sitting there on the couch. I'd gotten home from late meetings and vice versa, you know, my husband, and we were sitting there and I kind of looked at him, I was like, what are you thinking about? And he's like, I like the fact that we're spending time together. And I think you can have these experiences even when you're not like, setting up a dinner party, or even when you're not even maybe speaking that much. And I know that kind of sounds funny, like a show. I'm trying to think Beston's show when she goes, we can talk and not talk for hours. However, I think that that's true. And I think a lot of times we only think about the marriage, the ceremony. We think about having the children, and then we think about the fallout, either the death or the divorce. And I think that that's sad because of all that stuff in the middle. And I think that sometimes I think a good trick for this, and I started figuring this out, is if you go and look at your pictures, so go to your computer and go to your iPhoto or whatever, or go to your phone where you store your pictures at, and start from the very first picture and start looking through those pictures, and you're going to have all these memories flood into your mind that you never thought about. I mean, like the things that you forget. Like you take the picture, you get everybody together, and you go, yeah, oh, great picture. Oh, God, this guy's great. And then like literally a month later, you forget that you were even there. And then if you look back through that, you're going to have like a whole whirlwind of emotion and feelings, and you're going to realize the small stuff really isn't the small stuff. We've kind of BS'd it our whole life about thinking that big things have to come in big packages.
No.
And that's what's so far from the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, we've really been led astray by believing that. And I think that sometimes you have to sit there and look at the things that seem minute. And I think sometimes you have to look at the things, especially in marriage, that you have to give up things for. For example, you can't go out partying with the guys every night, or vice versa for the women listening tonight. You can't go out with the girls every night. Sometimes you can, but it's when you come together and you say, okay, I'm going to do this because I want to be with my spouse. I'm going to make the time. I'm going to step up to the plate. I'm going to be this person. I'm going to do what's right, even though I would prefer maybe to do something else. But I'm going to find the love in the situation. I'm going to find what I need to learn. So when we return, we're going to be talking more about what's in between. We're going to go into the friendship concept later on, the career. And then later on, I'm going to give you the tools for how to recognize and how to appreciate what's in between. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives with Ashley Burgess. The water's warm and there's a swim-up bar. Glass of perspective, anyone? Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On tonight's Perspectives, we've been exploring what it means to be human. What are the challenges that we go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between? And in the last segment, we were talking about marriage and about how, the extremes, the triumphs and the challenges. The extremes would be getting married, the party, the wedding, the wedding rehearsal, the wedding reception. And then the other extreme would be that one of, your spouse or you die or you get divorced. And then there's all this stuff in between. I mean, that actually formulates everything. I mean, that's where all the feeling, all the value, all this stuff comes into play. So now let's talk about friends. And I think a lot of times when we meet somebody, it can be really exhilarating, or we can be very happy or whatever. And it's not until we're either, that friendship dies or stops working, or somebody dies, or y'all break it off. That's another extreme. But in between, it's like all those experiences that you had, all those things you did together, all the fun you had, and even all the challenges you went through together. And I think that we've missed those.
Yeah, or the things that you didn't have. We were talking offline a moment ago, and I was telling you about a really dear friend of mine, Phil, in Houston, and we used to spend a lot of good times together. We both were single back in the day, and I'd gone through something in life, and for whatever reason, we stopped communicating, and 6, 8, 9 years passed, and I don't even remember why we stopped talking. And one day I just picked up the phone and I called him and I said, Phil, man, I just wanted to reach out to you to see how you're doing. And he said, Eric, I never thought I'd hear that voice again for the rest of my life. And that floored me, because I thought now, whatever it was, I don't even remember what it was, but those years passed and those were memories that we could have had. And so that means something. And I promised myself, I will not ever let an opportunity to be in someone's life, to create memories, to share memories, to experience memories with someone again. You have to be present in the moment. It means something. That's part of the journey.
Ashley, real quickly, let me read something to you. Okay. And I think this is appropriate for friendship and for marriage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails.
Wow,
okay?
That's great.
Yeah, we've got.
Now, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say now. I mean, you talk about in the spiritual dimension and in the emotional dimension. I personally, I'm a Christian, and I tend to view the human journey through that prism. Yeah. Okay. What I just read came from one of the letters of St. Paul. Yeah. It's 1 Corinthians 13. Verses 4 through 8.
That's awesome.
We've got a song version of that we sing in church, and it moves me every time.
It moves me,
It moves me every
time.
Because,
I think that's one of the basic questions of human existence. What is love?
What is love, and then how do you feel it? Like, a lot of times people want others to say that they love them, or they want to have gifts or be showered with gifts or diamonds for women and all this stuff. And it's like, sometimes love can just be sitting next to each other. Sometimes love could be taking care of your spouse or your friend that's sick. Yeah. Sometimes love is just being there.
Sometimes love is knowing that you are loved.
Yes.
You know, it's and love is interwoven in that journey that we talk about. That's the great elixir. That's the great elixir.
And one other point I'll make on that is that the English word love is not really sufficient, is it? I mean, because depending on the context, it can mean all sorts of different things.
Multidimensional.
So whether or not you're talking about your mate, your husband, wife, or
my best friend Phil,
or your best friend, or a family member, or whatever. Okay, then there's that love that's there.
Oh yeah, love is tops, and I love that, Bill. It was awesome.
Yeah, sweet, man. Love that.
Because the thing is that a lot of times we miss the boat with things because we're either trying to compete, we're trying to look good in front of other people, we're trying to be the best marriage. Oh, I got the best marriage, and you go out with your friends that are married too, and they got all this going on, and somebody just bought a new boat, and da-da-da-da-da, and then, somebody got a vacation home, and you're over there thinking, I don't have a vacation home. I haven't bought a boat. And then you start wondering, well, am I good enough? And it's like a lot of times we miss the boat, per se, because we get on this journey, we get on this race. We got to buy all this stuff. We got to have all this stuff. And when you get in the race, it's like, why are you in the race? You can come out of the race at any time.
The rat race, actually.
But poor rats. Man.
Yeah, I know.
Poor rats.
Poor us.
Yeah, really.
Humans.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. When you call it a rat race, you just compared yourself to a rat.
To a rat.
And
you're
not even human anymore.
Lowered yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe the animals are pretty high up there too. I think that we went on and put ourselves at the top of the food chain. But if we weren't here, they would do just fine without us. They would do just fine. Actually, they would do a lot better without us. They would do a lot better without us because the only people that would be taking out certain animals are the animals that actually eat them as food, not people that were poaching and killing them or using them for scientific investigation and for pharmaceuticals and cosmetic companies, amongst other things. However, yeah, I agree though. We did compare ourselves to rats in this situation. And I think we've been sold a bill of goods, and we've been sold these goods. We bought it hook, line, and sinker. We came home with it. We got the booklet on how to live a life and how you're going to do it. And the best thing that you can do is to have this kind of marriage, to have this kind of career, to make this kind of money, to donate and to dedicate happiness based upon whatever it is that it's supposed to be happiness is. And I think people miss the boat because you can be perfectly happy doing something that people call mundane. And I think the sad thing is the in-between has been labeled mundane. Like we've been labeled rats, the in-between is now mundane. Sadly enough, the mundane is the reason why we're here. So it's like trying to figure out why are we here has to be that you have to look at it differently. You can't sit there, you have to remove yourself from the race. You have to look at the mundane as the in-between and realize that the in-between is really essentially why we're here.
Yeah. Hey, Ashley, let me ask you this. When we're talking about the extremes, we're talking about the beginning, we're talking about the end. When you're at your end, whatever that is for you, and you look back, what do you want that narrative to say? Think about that.
Ashley,
take a moment.
She was love.
Ashley is speechless for once.
No,
she was love, and she loved. Yeah, I think she was love. Yeah. That's perfect. Because I wouldn't want to be labeled anything else. I mean, I think being labeled love is better than being labeled Ashley. I think that's being labeled better than Ashley saved 500 people on a boat that sank out of the Nantucket. No, I think that it's better to be like, hey, she's love, and I think that takes care of everything.
I like that.
Because that's it. That's the hierarchy. I think, and I think a lot of times we miss the boat on that too because we're scared to show love. Yeah. If we give love, are they gonna give it back? I wrote a blog a couple years back, and it said it was basically defined as they didn't say hi. And so it's a whole blog about how when you see somebody you know and they don't say hi, they don't even acknowledge you. And I don't know, I think there's probably been about 15 to 20,000 hits on that blog alone. And I mean, it's at the very top of that, on Google. I think it's right up there with, the dictionary and that kind of sort of thing on that deal. And I think on something else. However, when people don't say hi, it hurts your feelings, And so a lot of times when that has happened, we guard our emotion. And when we guard our emotion, what do? We keep up the walls from love. Yeah. And we separate ourselves from everybody on this planet on a constant basis, from every animal to every person. And then we want them to jump through hoops. If we're going to love them, then you have to be the one I want to love. You have to come to me. You have to do this. You have to shower me with this. You have to talk to me like that. You have to give me this. You have to be there for me for that, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, what can I do to help you out? Or how, what's going on in your life? And I'm just going to show you unequivocal, non-string attached love. And I think people don't know it.
Yeah.
Well, and I there's a reason why I read that passage from the Bible from you, Ashley. It's because, Paul, from a Christian standpoint, okay, Paul is the greatest theologian in Christian history.
And he went through a lot.
Yeah. And he, more than anybody else before or since, articulated what, the Christian religion is all about and put it in words that people can understand. One of his primary points, and the reason for that passage there, is that if you make your own universe just about yourself, then there's spiritual emptiness. When you put a higher being and other people ahead of your own needs, that's spiritual fulfillment.
Yeah.
And you cannot, give love if the well is dry, if there's nothing there to give.
No, you can't. You're right. You can't give anything. There's nothing you can give.
No, I agree. And that's, you touched me with that one, Billy. You really did, man, because that's something that I live by daily.
Yeah. And I'm speaking mostly from just a philosophical. I'm not trying to, evangelize or anything like that. I'm just saying the philosophy behind it, I think is very valid.
Real is real.
Whether you're a Christian or not.
Real is real.
Preach, preacher man.
Real
Preach.
is real, brother.
Preach.
Real is real.
So when we return, we're going to continue our exploration, and also we're going to begin understanding how to appreciate and recognize the in-between, because it's no longer the mundane, it's the in-between. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess on 660 The Answer.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. And if you've just now been tuning in, and I really hope that's not the case, but if you are, we've been exploring what it means to be human, the challenges we go through, the triumphs we experience, and absolutely everything in between. So, right before break, we had been talking about the concept of friends and the marriage and what's in between. It's not all about the meeting. It's not all about the ceremony. It's not all about possible divorce or death. It's everything that we experience in between. And I think that in order to understand what is in between, we have to learn how to appreciate it, but also how to recognize the in between. Because I can just tell you it's the in between, and you're just going to be like, okay, I don't remember. Nothing really stands out. I don't even remember where we had dinner on Friday night. I don't even remember the last time we had date night. I can't tell you any of that. I don't even know if I like the food. I don't even remember. I'm going to have to go back to my wallet, check my expenses, see where we went, and decide from there. And I think a lot of us are living our lives with that much memory on the in between. And I think it's crazy. So let's begin with this. So I think the first thing we need to do to begin to appreciate it, first off, is that you have to get out of the Fox News lifestyle. Okay, we all buy into this lifestyle of, if it bleeds, it leads. So a lot of drama comes from that too. So a lot of times there's drama. A lot of times we can have arguments because we're wanting to have this extreme communication, but as well as realizing that if something is really extreme going on with your life, it might be good for Fox News, but that's not the meat of what's happening. It's the stuff in between. And I think, Eric, you might be able to explain what I'm trying to say is that it's not all about those extreme qualities. It's about appreciating the smaller things.
Ashley, that's an outstanding point. And for the listeners out here, I'm having an in-between moment today. My daughter, I mentioned earlier, is shadowing me all day today, and she's in the studio with us today. And that's an in-between moment. Ashley, we were talking about this earlier before we came on air, and she's a teenager and all of that. And, at some point, Daddy, this is boring. I'd probably rather be with my friends. But 10 years from now, she'll remember this. She'll remember this moment. She'll remember the fact that Daddy loved me enough, cared for me enough, and gave me enough attention to make me a part of his day. And that's an in-between moment.
Day and night.
Yeah, that's an in-between moment.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, you stopped long enough, the race, long enough to actually interact.
Yeah.
With life.
And that's a big deal.
And we all get so, I do this, and I think actually so do you sometimes. We just get so caught up in, okay, I've got X, Y, and Z to do today.
I do it every day. I do it this is something that I actually have to deal with on a daily basis. Because a lot of times we talk about things that I've worked out and I've done this, but this is something that I actually am currently working on. Like, I'm currently realizing that there's a lot of things I take for granted. I'm currently recognizing that there's a lot of situations. So, for example, when I hang out with friends or even family, I'll listen and da-da-da-da-da, and, sometimes you'll be there for so long that you're going to fall asleep or whatever. And then finally, when you're about to leave is when I all of a sudden go, oh. Yeah. And then I'm like, and then my goodbyes take forever.
Yeah, longer than the visit.
Yeah, because that's when I finally woke up and realized, I'm leaving now.
I can attest to that personally.
You can?
Have you ever tried getting Ashley off the phone?
I will rush you off the phone until the very end, and then I'll be like, Bill, I need to talk. Okay, well, and you're like, God, you rushed me off for the first 5 minutes. Like, I always do that. I push people off the phone as fast, and then all of a sudden, how are you doing?
Yeah.
What's going on? Because then I realize I am totally not even a part a conversation.
And then I have to say, okay, Ashley, got to go, so I'll talk to you later. Bye.
I'll be like, oh, cut it off. But then when he calls you back, I'm like, yeah, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? But then it's like, but it is.
It's funny, Ashley. We have broke bread, about a couple weeks ago, and we had a meeting working on some projects and what have you, and it was a great meeting. But the best time was me walking you to your car, which actually diverted into you walking to go shopping. But the walk.
I didn't buy anything though.
But you didn't buy anything. But the walk was so rich. I mean, because we're constantly planning for a show, looking at schedules, doing all those kinds of things. But for that brief moment, you and I were just walking, being folks,
exactly,
being everyday folks, and that was a special moment.
And I think sometimes we forget that that's a special moment. Like the other day, I was sitting on the couch. It was 2 days ago. No, 2 nights ago, actually. I was sitting on the couch with Greg, and I was asking him what he was thinking about. And he's like, what? And he was just really quiet, and he was kind of like reading a book, and I was like, what are you thinking about? He's like, I was just thinking about how great it is to be here, to hang out with you.
Sweet.
And I was like, aw.
Sweet.
I was thinking, you're just reading that damn book. You know what I mean? What the heck are you doing? You know what I mean? But really, in actuality, he was actually in the moment.
We guys have emotions.
Yeah.
We have levels. We have layers.
I wasn't even in the moment that much. Like, I need to be aware that is a moment. Like sometimes we've been taught, at least I've been taught so much by watching or experiencing or whatever, where it's like, oh, if it's all glitz or if it's lights or something's going on, you're like, I'm awake. But when it's like kind of quiet.
But that's the beauty of the relationship, though. That's that in between. That was an in between.
That was an in between.
So one of the best pieces of advice my dad ever gave me was that, because I'm awkward being in the same room with somebody and not speaking to them, because I don't do like small talk conversation very well. At least I don't think I do.
Nor I.
So okay, once that's over with, where do you go from there? And my dad says, look, you've got to learn to be alone together. Mm-hmm. And my dad is champ of this. He and my stepmother will be there in the same room. He'll be reading a book. She'll be watching, her Korean TV, and they don't say anything to each other for like a couple hours at a time.
Verbally, at least.
Yeah, verbally at least. And I never kind of got that. It's like, it's how can you do that?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Because I think a lot of people listening tonight might actually feel the same way. I have some friends that are like that, where they have to they have to actually fill the airways with commentary every single second.
Though. It's exhausting.
You know, and you have friends like that too. And I know people that are really intelligent people that think that they need to ask everything.
Yeah.
And I've even told a couple of my friends a few times, by the way, I really love you. I really, really love you, but you've got to stop. And I have a friend of mine's mom is the same way too. She doesn't stop. And I think too, it's like, a lot of times they see talking as part of the human condition, and that brings them together. But I think like what you brought up, Bill, a lot of times like this non-speaking ability to come together makes so much more sense.
Here's my Depeche Mode moment again. Enjoy the silence.
Oh, you love Depeche Mode.
Words are meaningless and forgettable. All I ever wanted, all I ever needed is here in my arms.
Oh, you and your Depeche Mode.
I gotta love it, man. Love it.
That's good, though. That's good. I like that.
It's appropriate.
It's appropriate. I like that. So I think a lot of times, let's think about that. So from now on out, for everybody that's listening, you're not a news show, okay? So it doesn't have to be extremely dramatic. It doesn't have to bleed. It doesn't have to be awful. It doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to be life. And start looking at those times when you are, like if you're in the car right now driving to go to dinner. If you're at home right now listening on your couch, you know, whatever you're doing, the process is this is a moment you can't get back.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we don't realize that. We feel like we're gonna live in this body forever, and that's not the case. Things do change. It doesn't get worse, it gets better, but things do change, and these actual experiences are one of a kind. And even though sometimes they can feel mundane, or somebody can say, oh, I haven't left the house, all I've done is this, and that. Is that a big deal? I mean, does leaving the house and going out to dinner, does going out always have to mean a big deal? And then at that point in time, how many times do you go out? And then that kind of muddles the situation as well. You know, a lot of times we go out and do so many big things all the time just to outdo this and to outdo that and to go on a bigger trip. And, oh, well, that trip was better. And, oh, this, and then all of a sudden you go on a trip and you go, oh, this room sucks. Oh, this resort sucks. Oh, this is awful. And then you're bummed the whole trip because it doesn't rate up to the last trip.
You know, that's funny, Ashley. I'm laughing because my wife and I, thankfully or fortunately, or whatever you want to call it, we get invited to big events sometimes, big productions, big events, racing, sports, all of this kind of stuff. And before we even get to the event, we're working on our exit strategy because it's like the event's all fun and dandy, but let's get through it so we can get back home or enjoy the ride back home together.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. I mean, that's the coolest thing. It's like, what's the exit strategy today? Okay, sick kid, whatever we need to do to get out of here. So
you're sick kid. You act.
Yeah.
Call me right now at this time.
Exactly.
If you don't call me, you are grounded forever.
Gotta go.
So when we come back on this next break, we're going to be talking about, you know, being on a deathbed, being past, you know, dealing with the concept of seeing kind of like your life flash in front of your very eyes, realizing that things do change. And I think that I'm not trying to bring down the house, and let's bring it back up. But I am saying that there is some sort of finite, you know, kind of ending here to a certain degree that I think once we realize that, we can kind of maybe start to cherish the other. And I think also maybe it doesn't have to be that extreme for you. Maybe once you start realizing that the mundane is not mundane and the in-between is pretty cool, maybe that might open your eyes too as well, but not only your eyes, but your heart. So stay tuned, because when Perspectives returns, we are figuring out more about the human conditions and why we do what we do. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with Ashley Burgess we'll be back in 2 shakes.
I could lift you up. I could show you what you want to see and take you where you want to be.
Get in here. Give us your perspective. We're listening. And you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. And, you know, tonight's show, we have been exploring what it means to be human, the challenges we all seem to go through, the triumphs we experience, and everything in between. And right before break, I would begin the discussion of how to recognize and how to appreciate the in-between. Because remember, the in-between is no longer the mundane. The in-between is the in-between. And so right before, we were talking about getting out of the Fox News mentality. Get out of that lifestyle, because if, you know, we always think about if it bleeds, it leads. But let's not actually make that into our own life. I think a lot of times we succumb to that philosophy of what's important. If it's a huge deal, if it's a big deal, if it's not a big deal, if it's upsetting, those things are triumphs, or those things are challenges, and the in-between we just kind of throw off to the side. And I think earlier, a few segments ago, I told you, like, the best way to kind of identify some of these in-between moments moments are to go onto your computer, go onto your phone, and go back to those pictures that you've taken and kind of look through those pictures and realize all the memories and the moments that you might have actually forgotten. Second of all is the concept of the deathbed. Is that, I don't know whether this is a little extreme and maybe brings the room down a little bit, but when you're on your deathbed, the things that are the in-between are the things that you're going to remember most. And I think that, when you're sitting on the couch with your spouse and you're just enjoying, just a relaxing time, if you're in the car talking and just having a moment, being human and experiencing this and having this love between you, I mean, those are what's important. I mean, when you're on your deathbed or and you can't get out of bed and you have nurses and all these facilities taking care of you, the last thing you're thinking about is, picking up your Maserati. The last thing you're thinking about is that ball you went to where you had to get dressed up and you had to wear that outfit that you couldn't, for a woman, you couldn't fit into. For a guy, your tuxedo was too old. You could barely, pull the zipper up, what have you. Those kind of things are not the things you think about. I think it's always those in between. And I think the in between, honestly, instead of being the in between, should be kind of known as the heart and soul. I think the in between is the heart and soul. So we've gone from mundane, right, to the in between, to the heart and soul, because the other stuff, the big things just kind of commemorate it.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the parties, right? But life's not all a party. I mean, but you can be happy in what you do.
Yeah, for me, Ashley, it's not a downer. And I haven't been on a deathbed yet, but as if I ever get to one, which I'm pretty sure I will, for me, I would hope my memories orbit around two central thoughts or themes or ideas or concepts. First of all, grateful for grace. Grateful that I've had a chance to experience this life and thankful to God for that experience and the grace that he's shown me. And the other is the opportunity to experience joy and love. That's the dominant expression or experience that I've always migrated to. So, hopefully my deathbed experience, it's those things, and it's not the bitter things. It's not the material things, but it's the fact that God created me, showed me grace throughout my life, and allowed me to experience joy and love. It's that simple for me. Maybe different for someone else, but I like that as an outro.
No, it's pretty cool. I like that too.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I mean, I think it's about the details, and I think you're lucky to have had these details.
Well, and maybe another way to put it, and I'm thinking in these terms right now because I'm starving to death. But it's the main course. Okay, we're done.
Dinner's coming.
No more appetizers.
I mean, yeah, we're done with the salad or the soup and the glass of water you never drink. And now the main course is here.
You need to drink that water. I have been pushing water on you for so long.
It's unfiltered though.
Oh, who cares? It's water. Who cares? It's water. In the end of times, if there is no water, you're going to wish you had that glass. You're going to think back about all those glasses you threw out at the restaurants and go, oh, God, please let me have some of that unfiltered water.
I was going to say, depending on the restaurant, I think Eric may be right. I'm not sure the unfiltered water would be good for you. But.
Yeah, I mean, it might dry you out a little bit, the chlorine and all that stuff. But just let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. I mean, it's better than drinking out of the little side of the ground over there outside where you park your car, where the poor birds have to drink out of the water. You get a little sip. But yeah, you're right.
God, we digress. I
was going to say, where did this go? Yeah.
You're right about the details, though. And I think that you have to read between the lines. And I think these lines, what is this, the heart and soul, it holds it all together.
Yeah.
It binds us. It binds your life. It's the things that you can take with you. And I think you're lucky to be alive. And these things, if you were dying, these would be the things that they would trade everything for.
Yeah.
It's not about all this sidebar stuff. It's not about the hoopla. It's not about the glitz and glam. It's not about the party. It's about the real stuff.
You bring up an image, and we're all movie buffs here, and Billy would really dig this, but everybody saw Gladiator. Or I would assume everybody saw Gladiator.
Actually, right? I didn't see Gladiator.
Oh, come on, Billy, you're killing me, man. You're leaving me out. But there's a great scene. It was Russell Crowe's in it.
Yeah, right? I know Russell Crowe's in it.
Russell Crowe's in it, and he's gone through this whole journey of life. And ultimately, he accomplishes his purpose in life and makes everything right. And he dies on the floor of the Colosseum in Rome. And then they cut to him floating away in death. And the images that they show are him floating away in death. But it shows images of his kids, of his wife, and his farm. That's it.
Wow.
It doesn't show the victories in the Colosseum. It doesn't show the victories of war. It doesn't show all those things. It shows his kid, his wife, and his farm.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple. It's that simple. That was his in between, and that's what he remembered the most, the in between.
Yeah, that's what matters.
That's what
and
matters.
I think a lot of times we put all this, this like praise and like this power and the significance on the triumphs and the challenges because, you know, that's what we believe we should put, you know, this power, this energy into. But I think you're right. It's like, it's not, and I think this is something that people learn most of the time when it's too late.
When it's
sadly
too late.
enough.
Yeah.
Like when you're over there, like cleaning your Academy Awards or you're cleaning whatever you have your awards or whatever it is that you have, and you're over there, you're not going to even think about that later on. And for some reason, our world has been wrapped up about what have you achieved? What is the greatness that you have? What are the awards that you won? What are the accolades that you've gotten? You know, and people ask that all the time instead of focusing or refocusing on what really matters. And I do think that a lot of times we just miss the boat. I mean, we miss it because we are trained to miss it.
Because we're racing.
We're racing
Like I said,
a race that
because-
doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, we're in our cars and we got someplace to go. We got something to do.
We're sprinting.
And get out of my way.
I'm so busy. Haven't you
Yes.
heard that haven't you heard that when people say, I'm so busy? And you go, how much busier are you that you can't pick up the phone and call me? I mean, you must be the busiest person in the world.
Or
Busy.
what I get onto my brother for, you know, you can't take 5 seconds in your day to send a text message.
It takes 5 seconds. I mean, honestly, really.
that.
How busy are you?
Yeah.
I mean, are you so busy that you're so busy and that you don't live your own life anymore? Because that's really what's happening. And,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people listening, I got one thing that I used to do a lot, is that I used to run around and I would just, and I still do a little bit of this, but I have a schedule so tight that I have so many things to do every single day, every single night, that it was when I had a downtime, it freaked me out. Like I thought something was wrong with me.
Let me
Okay.
create something to do now.
Oh, I went on a vacation a few years back, and it was in a very quiet place out in the middle of nowhere, and also it was foreign, so that the phone, you know, that was like an expensive tool. If you ever were to use the phone, it was like $5 a minute, right? So I was like, okay, well, I got to put the phone down for a little while. I freaked out. I almost had a panic attack. When we got there, it was so quiet. You could hear a pin drop. All I heard were these little birds. And I remember going, is there any lighting or electricity here? And they were like, well, there's no phones, no TVs in your room. I'm like, oh my God. And I remember just going, I got to be a part of life now. And I think we have all these things that are like getting us off target about what our life really is. So you go home and you got the TV blaring, you got the radio going, you got the news going, you got some reality show going, and it's interfering with what's really working in your life.
There's a hip hop song called Patience. It's with an artist called Nas and Damian Marley. And there's a line that Damian Marley says, and it's all about being tough and all of this kind of stuff. And Damian says, can you survive dead silence? If you're so tough, can you survive dead silence? Think about that.
That's hard for a lot of people.
Bingo. Could you survive? Think about that. Could you survive dead silence? Think about that.
Yeah.
I can't. I was actually in a 10-day retreat. I'm not going to do a retreat, but where you couldn't speak to anybody but yourself. And I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. And it wasn't like a sweat lodge thing, but it was very similar to a situation like that. And whew.
Yeah.
Woo! I mean, you learn a lot about yourself because, I mean, it is like, you know, those movies, because after like 4 days of not speaking, 5 days of not speaking, not any TV, no phone, no nothing, just complete silence, really? Yeah.
Can you survive dead silence?
I like to bet some people that are listening tonight, if you think you can do that. I'm sure some of y'all have, but I'd like to bet y'all and see how we do. I mean, I don't know what we'll bet. But
I could. I mean, because I've always been an introvert.
You could do it?
And yes, and in fact, the times I value best is when I'm just by myself.
Well, we're gonna actually we're gonna get some money and pay for Bill to go to one of these.
Let's do it.
These 10-day quiet retreats, and we're gonna
to me, that's a vacation.
We'll send him to a mountain.
It, right?
We'll send him to a mountain in Central Africa. That's dead silence.
Go.
We'll do that at night.
Oh yeah, we're just gonna renegade, just drop him from a plane. You're gonna have your parachute. You're gonna have your parachute. We're gonna give you a little map and a compass, and we'll be back to get you. And here's some little night vision goggles. We hope to find you.
Billy will come back with a robe and tablets.
Yeah, I have seen the light.
No, you created the light out there. You know, you're now some sort of ruler.
He'll
or
look
something.
good in a robe and tablets, wouldn't he? And a walking
and a
stick.
beard. I had to grow a beard.
Yeah. Take it.
Oh, my.
Take an Old Testament, baby.
You're
Do
changing
it.
things now. I'm starting to wonder now. Maybe we should do this.
Old Testament in the house, baby.
It's real Old Testament. I like
Get
this
your
stuff.
Moses on.
Get it on, baby.
So think about it. Go back and recognize these things in your life. Realize that it's not the news. Your life doesn't have to be the news. It doesn't have to mimic the news. It doesn't have to mimic a reality show. It can be yours. Think about the in-between. It's not the mundane. It's the heart and soul of the matter. Those are the things that keep you going. Those are the things that you're always going to remember, no matter what. I mean, it's a fact. It's just a fact. And it's like when we can get to know this before we get to that age, it's so awesome because you're actually experiencing things as it happens. Yeah. And you also are happy because later on down the road, you go, I really experienced those things. And you feel good instead of sad or, oh man, every time I went and saw them, all I did was care about leaving. And then when I left, I felt bad, I felt sad, And so I think this has been a great show. I mean, we have a great show for you next week. And Eric, one last thing. Say to the audience tonight.
Hey, I'm just happy to be here. Thank you guys for listening tonight. And can you survive dead silence?
Good question, Bill. One last thought.
I'm showing you I can survive dead silence.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Oh, did you see? Bill was actually giving dead silence. So anyway, stay tuned. We got a great show for you next week, and just keep it going because we realize that the in-between is the heart and soul. Perspectives with me, your host, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back in, guess what? We'll be back in 3 shakes.